everyone. Welcome back to the Ohio State Sport Management YouTube channel. I'm Joe Mullins, and today's guest is Dr. Kwame Agyemang, who is currently an Associate Professor of Sport Management at The Ohio State University. Thank you for joining us today, Kwame.
No, thanks for having us. Thank you for having me, I should say.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we'll jump right in with some questions here. First, can you just give us like a brief description of your education and career journey so far?
Let's see. So I went to the University of Oklahoma, graduated there in 2007 with a degree in political science. Initially thought I was going to go to law school, which is the reason why I majored in political science. You know, it's a running joke that within African communities that you have basically 3 or 4 options for a career, which is why I did that. So you have a medical doctor or something in the medical field, engineer, lawyer, or the last one is a disgrace to the family. So I chose, I kind of got out because I am technically, you know, a doctor, but I'm not a medical doctor. But so yeah, I had those initial plans to go to law school, figured out it wasn't for me. Pursued my master's in higher education administration because I initially thought I was going to be a administrator in the college university setting, and decided not to do that after working in grad school, getting my, I was working in the athletic department at the University of Oklahoma. And I just saw the work-life balance, it just wasn't for me. So then decided to fully pursue PhD options, becoming a professor. And that's when I went to Texas A&M University for my PhD in sport management. And you know, here we are, a little over almost 10 years later.
Nice. Where have you taught before Ohio State?
So I started off a year at Eastern Kentucky University near Richmond, Kentucky. Lived in Lexington and made the short commute, about 20, 25 minutes. It's a teaching school, so I had a four load. So essentially I'm, you know, teaching 4 classes per semester. So like I said, I was only there for 1 academic year. Then I got recruited to go to Louisiana State University, LSU, and I was there for 7 years before, you know, I came here.
Cool. And what brought you to Ohio State? Like, what made you make the move from LSU besides a better football team?
I think I was just ready for a change, to be honest. I'd been at LSU for, you know, a good amount of time, and I think I grew a lot there, learned a lot, but Dr. Turner, he had inquired with one of my colleagues there if, you know, if Ohio State would be someplace I'd be interested in, and you know, came here in December 2018, I think it was, for interview. Liked it, you know, liked the faculty. Got a chance to meet some of the doctoral students at the time, and you know, everything just seemed really good for my, I guess, for the next step in terms of my career, and an opportunity to move out of the South for the first time, basically, in my life. I've lived in Texas and Louisiana and Oklahoma for the majority of my life. Besides that, 9 or so months in Kentucky. But yeah, it was just a great opportunity. You know, Ohio State's a great academic institution, Big Ten, you know, all those things. Just you know, a chance to, you know, see something different and, you know, change of scenery and experience cold for the first time in my life, which was for all of us in my family. It was definitely a rude awakening, even though we've been told that it was a mild winter. And if that's mild, I'm afraid for whenever the real winter comes.
That was fun for like a week, and then you're like over it.
Right.
So what courses do you have you taught, and what courses are you currently teaching this year?
Let's see. So my first year, I just had a 1-1 load. So I just taught 1 class per semester. In the fall, I taught leadership and programming in the sport industry. It's an undergraduate course. And then in the spring semester, I taught the course that you were in, of course, sport law, graduate level. You know, this coming fall, I'm teaching a colloquium graduate course. The topic will be leading change. So we'll be talking about how individuals such as like athletes, um, or any celebrity CEO like an owner or something like that, and then organizations themselves can lead change both within the organization and outside, with regard to social change, just because there's so much pressure on organizations these days, particularly sport ones, right, to engage in this battle to fight injustice and inequality. So I'll be teaching that, and then I'm also teaching a undergraduate course called College Sport. So
Cool.
that's what I'll be teaching this coming fall.
Awesome. Are there any courses that you haven't gotten to teach that you'd like to?
Um, I'm not sure. Like, I'm still myself getting familiar with the curriculum myself, but I think this colloquium is a good opportunity to teach something that is really geared towards my research and what I'm really fascinated with and study. But other than that, I think let's see, any doc seminar. Um, you know, Dr. P and Dr. Turner both teach with regard to what is it called, theoretical approaches,
Hmm.
anything like that. I mean, I'd be fine to teaching anything like that, but there are classes I try to stay away from, such as like research and another course that you know of, but I won't speak up.
We'll record that. Cool. You briefly mentioned, part of your role at a research university is doing research. Can you talk about your research interests a little bit?
Yeah, so I study, well, I guess back up, I'm fascinated with this whole notion of change, which is, why I'm teaching this course in the fall. I really want to focus on change. But to study it, I particularly look at like norms within like systems and institutions and organizations, and, I'm better, try to better understand how we can like disrupt those, change those to make it better for a people or a group of population that's kind of like maybe disenfranchised within that system or organization. So much of my research is focused on that, with a particular focus on race and ethnicity within organizations.
Cool. Cool. Thank you. What have been some of the highlights of your career in academia so far? Like, what are some things you really, really enjoyed being able to do?
Um, let's see, I would say, I guess the one that comes to mind first is just getting tenure in my former institution, OSU. I got that letter back in, I think it was April 2018, which was, an achievement for myself. Anybody, right? Any faculty member that enters and, does this as a vocation, as a job, as a career, as a tenure track professor, one of your first goals is you want to achieve tenure and promotion, because those two things are separate. Um, and then coming here to Ohio State, I didn't go through that process again, but kind of like expedited. So as I was uh, in the spring semester 2019, they did a review of my stuff, and everything thankfully went okay, and I was able to come in with promotion and tenure here at Ohio State. So other than that, I would say I graduated a doctoral student at LSU. Just that whole process of recruiting a doctoral student, making sure that you find the right one, somebody that's willing to learn. So it was good to see, him graduate and publish papers from his dissertation, because that was actually my first doctoral student. The first one didn't go too well. So
Uh,
the person had to leave. We had to cut that person loose. So I was glad to graduate at least one before I left LSU.
cool.
A couple others, I think, when I was during my time there, I also was awarded with the Advocate for Diversity Award.
Oh, awesome.
So yeah, so just given my interest, given my background, I thought that was really cool to be able to win something like that and have my peers nominate me for something like that, and seeing the work that I'm doing, not only my research, but with the students, with other faculty members, to have like bring lasting change to the university and our program and the department. And I would say, lastly, I guess just because it's more fresh in my mind, just being here at Ohio State is in the spring, I think, yeah, in the spring, I was awarded with a group of others the Big Idea Grant, which the which the dean put forth at our um, it was a meeting we had early in the fall semester, or before the fall semester even started. Said that he was going to be awarding $1 million in grants to various teams that were looking at these, quote unquote, big ideas within our respective fields. And myself and a few other professors, um, we are looking at supporting Black faculty wellness and looking how we can, better integrate that into the campus with regard to like fitness and just wellness in general. So we were awarded $100,000 to better understand that. So yeah, I think that was also um, one of my highlights, more recent highlights that I could, point back to.
Yeah, that's a huge honor, man. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, we were all excited to get that award.
Yeah, that's amazing. You and I have kind of talked offline about this a little bit, but how do you see the field of sport management changing over the next couple years?
Man, it's a good question. I mean, it's interesting because the field is still relatively new, so it's constantly evolving, and we see this constant change, year by year. So more and more universities are having sport management programs in their other part of the curriculum. And there's a number of reasons for this. In my opinion, I think it's because of revenue, being able to recruit students. It's just one reason. Of course, it's not the sole reason, but it is
Mm-hmm.
a popular major across many schools and departments, and students like it, right? A lot of students see sport as like this really cool, sexy thing to do, and universities are picking up on that and offering it as a major for the students. But I guess a few other changes that we see more recently with the newer programs, at least, is in terms of their housing and where they're located, right? So sport management programs, you'll see they're housed in various departments and colleges, whether that be like us in the College of Education, Human Sciences. Some you'll see like in business school or hospitality or commercial tourism. So in some, I guess, as a field, we're still trying to, figure things out. Where we fit, where's the best home, for our study. Um, so I think those are the things that we're going to have to contend with as we move forward as a field, as a discipline, as an area of study, to give our students like the best experience as they move forward in the workforce.
Yeah, sort of set them up for success for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Kind of along those same lines, there's a new incoming class of graduate students this year that are starting in kind of a weird time with COVID and a lot of classes being held over Zoom or remotely. What's your advice to incoming grad students about how they can kind of get the most out of the program this year? It's a hard
Yeah,
question.
it is just because it'll vary depending on where they are. If they're taking classes online, are they going to be in person? Are they going to be hybrid? But I think in general, there's some general tips that I think they can apply to their time here at Ohio State, or if there's anybody else watching that doesn't attend our university. But I think one of the things the first thing that comes to mind is you have to allow some time to adjust. Um, of course, you want to hit the ground running, but you want to allow some time for you to um, understand your university, your new context, where you are, figure things out like that. Other than that, I would say setting some goals, priorities. So, for instance, what do you want to accomplish your first semester, your first year, beyond just grades, right? Because one of the things I always tell the students is like graduate school is not just about the grades; it's about what you're learning and what you make of it. For instance, do you want to acquire an internship after your first year? Hopefully you do. Hopefully you're looking for internships, potential sites for internships. So of course this is a kind of an anomaly year just because a lot of internships have been canceled, but in general you still want to be looking for those opportunities. um, I think also you don't want to try to do everything at once. You want to take some time to um, make a schedule, plan out your semester, plan out your weeks, even, smaller than that, and ask for help too. Like a lot of students, graduate students, undergraduate students, they don't want to ask for help. Utilize your professors. Um, they're accessible. They want to help you. We have office hours. Um, we have this knowledge that we want to pass down to you, help you out. The connections that we have with people in the industry, really use those. And um, with all this being said, I think another thing that even I have to contend with is just being able to say no. So you're going to be offered all these opportunities, right? As you come to this campus, as you start graduate school. Hey, do you want to do this? Clubs, or do you want to lead this, or do you want this opportunity, that potential opportunity for an internship? There's all these different things all coming together, but you just don't want to get yourself overwhelmed at the end, and kind of frazzle out and um, not be able to accomplish the goals that you set for yourself upon coming in. Um, but in the end, I think there's also two other things. Have fun, because this is one of the last things that you'll do before you really start like a real thing. And
Oh man.
as hard as it may be, or as annoying as it may be, going to class and doing those things, um, the next thing up is the real world. So, have fun, enjoy it. But all in all, just believe in yourself. Bet on yourself, believe in yourself.
Cool. That's great advice, man. Kind of along those same lines, like what kind of transferable skills do you think are the most important to have a successful career in the sport industry?
Yeah, the sport industry is evolving so much, so it's gonna, I guess, depend on which sector of the sport industry that you do work in. But I think, as a whole, one of the key things you want to be able to do is be able to communicate, be a good communicator, and then talking to employers, talking to friends, colleagues that are executives or administrators in sport organizations. That's one of the first things they always tell me: being able to communicate. Another thing I think is can you work in teams? Nowadays, you're not just working with a group of people like at your organization. You may be working with somebody across the world, or even in a different state, with the globalized nature of sport nowadays. So
Mm-hmm.
can you work in teams? You have to ask yourself that. And I know some of you students hate group work, but that's one of the reasons why we do group work and teamwork, right? Because it's not something that is going to go away. You're always going to be working in teams, even as you go out into the workforce. Um, I'm thinking maybe creativity. Are you creative, especially right now, right, with COVID
Yep.
and the job market being kind of collapsed compared to what it was a year or two ago. So many people are applying for the same amount of jobs, so you have to kind of differentiate yourself. And how creative can you be? How creative are you? Um, then there's the others, just the basic time management, uh,
Mm-hmm.
leadership. I think another one is like flexibility, versatility. Are you able to adapt to change? Um, Working in the sport industry, in a lot of parts, you're going to be working long hours. Are you willing to accept that? Like, are you okay with that? That's one of the things employers are going to want to know. And then I think lastly, do you have an entrepreneurial spirit? Like, are you able to create ways, think of new ways to do things, bring value um, to the organization or company that you work for?
Yeah, I'd say the program does a great job of, I know at least in every one of the courses I took this past year, there was definitely a team aspect of all of them. And they also allow you to, be creative and come up with, either fun or creative ways to, solve the problems that you're being asked to solve.
Yeah,
So I think you actually do get a chance to practice a lot of those skills. So that's good to hear that those are skills that you're going to want out in the job market as well.
definitely.
You mentioned Dr. Turner, kind of recruiting you as an employee here at Ohio State, but who has influenced you the most in your career, whether it's, other, past professors or professional relationships or anything?
Yeah. Um, the first person I can think of is my PhD advisor, Dr. John Singer, John N. Singer, he says, don't forget the N.
Okay.
He's also a graduate of Ohio State University. He was here when Dr. Turner was here, I think, I think maybe his first year, Dr. Turner was on his way out. So, um, as I think I've told you, like we're all one big family in sport
Hmm.
management. Like we all pretty much know each other across the nation. If we don't know each other, we've we've at least heard the name, seen the person at a conference or whatever.
Sure.
Um, just because, like, you know, he took a chance on me, you know, coming out as a master's student, not having a background at all in this field. Had never taken a sport management class, but he saw some potential. Um, and like I said, you know, he took a chance on me, and you know, we're still really close to this day. Like he's like a big brother to me. You know, we talk multiple times a week. Um, so just, you know, kind of teaching me showing me the ropes in terms of research and, you know, tenure, promotion and tenure. He was going through that while, you know, I was at Texas A&M. So just being able to see that was a great help, and he's always just been great to me and answering questions and just being available and just kind of modeling what I would want to be as a professor back then when I saw how he was in the classroom and even outside the classroom. Um, Beyond him, there's a couple others as well. I think Marvin Washington, he's a professor at University of Alberta Business School. I think he's actually an associate dean now of executive education out there. But I met him some years ago, back when I was a doctoral student at Texas A&M, and he's a really cool, chill guy. He's been great in terms of working with him on projects and kind of allowing me to see research and thinking about research in a different way than maybe what I was taught, because he comes at it from a different perspective, being educated in management. Um, he got his degree at Kellogg
Yeah.
at
Wow.
Northwestern. So of course he's coming at it from a whole different perspective. So he's really challenged me. Like I really, you know, admire him and thank him for the ways that he's challenged me in terms of how I go about thinking about my research. And same with the next person, Kim Elsbach. Before I came to Ohio State, I had the opportunity to do a sabbatical at UC Davis, and if you remember, that was an extra credit question, I believe, on your midterm exam. that,
All
was,
right. I nailed that one.
that, was, that was the last time I saw any of you guys in person. Um, yeah, her same thing. You know, I was at graduate school of management at UC Davis, and I met her some years ago at a conference, and her research is something that I took a liking to some years ago, and just, you know, followed with her. And she was gracious enough to kind of, you know, always be there, answer my questions, and again, same thing, challenge me in terms of how I'm thinking about my research. And then there's also colleagues too that have also been a big influence. Mainly my colleague at UMass, a research partner, friend, colleague, sister, Nefertiti Walker. She's now the interim vice provost, I believe, at UMass for diversity, inclusion, and um, just being able to work with her on projects has just been really great. You know, it's interesting. We watched you know, the Last Dance. Many of us watched the Last Dance, and
Yeah.
in the Jordan, he said one thing about Pippen. He's like, you'll never hear me say or Jordan without Pippen or something like that. There's no
Yeah.
Jordan
Yeah.
without Pippen. So it's the same kind of thing. Like she's been great. Like I wouldn't be able to do some of the things if it wasn't for her. So I'm thinking in all, like those 3, 4 people have had a huge impact, you know, on my career and really influenced me a lot.
Yeah, it's been a theme of these interviews, whether we're interviewing, really successful alumni or, people that are just out, just graduated, kind of first couple of years of working, or like you guys on faculty. It's like everyone's got, a handful of people that like they say they would never be where they are without them. So it's always cool to hear that people have given you time, along your path. And all these other people have been really willing to give back and talk to students and things like that. So
Sure.
that's awesome to hear. Part of your work outside of campus, I guess, is you recently started a consulting company and a podcast. Can you talk a little bit about those and why you started that and kind of what that is?
Yeah, I think a lot of times as faculty members, we get into this. Um, we're so focused on our research, and we want to have like actual application on actual practice. Um, but I mean, just being real, like, we write these articles and um, no one's reading them besides us, right? So we send them to each other. We have you students read them. Um, but other than that, they're really not getting disseminated to the people that we want to, such as leaders in sport organizations, for the most part, not always. But so this, starting the consulting company was a way for me to, it was kind of like an evolution of all the work that I've done over the past 10 or so years, and wanting to have actual impact beyond the classroom, my students, but have impact with the organizations that I've spoken to, that I've done a little work for in the past. And then 68th Street, it's an evolution of not only that, but something I've been thinking about for some time. Started developing the plans late last year, and then come what was it April, May, where um, Ahmaud Arbery, we had George Floyd, we had Breonna Taylor, all within a few months time. And I was like, man, I got to really, I got to get on this, and I got to do this, because there's a lot of people out there that, at least in my experience and the work that I've done with organizations in the past or conversations I've had, people that want to help, they want to be able to address these issues within the organization, but they just don't know how to. They don't know the questions to ask, and I want to be a part of that in terms of helping them along this path and their journey to address these issues within the organization, and then how they can also address these issues beyond the walls of the organization. So, I held that webinar back in May, I think that you were on, and I mean, I got a lot of great feedback from that, and people saying, this is great, and like, I want to help, but one of the initial questions I asked, right, was like, why are you here? Why are you taking this? Why are you taking this right now? And it was the same kind of thing. This is what I see on TV, what I hear is troubling. Things I've heard in the office with colleagues is troubling, but I don't say anything. Um, so just trying to give them some practical tips to do that. So that's kind of like the story behind, the evolution, I guess, of 68th Street. And the podcast is just another way to disseminate the word, interviewing some leaders or just working professionals um, in various industries, not just sport, but various industries. Like, at 68th Street, while the name kind of emanates from a sport background in 1968 with John Carlos and Tommy Smith at the Victory Stand, it's not confined to just helping sports people or sport organizations. They're not the only ones struggling with these issues, but podcasts tries to better understand inflection points. That's why I named it an inflection point, because I think we're in an inflection point right now. Many organizations are in an inflection point, like these turning points, these changes that we're facing as a society. So I'm interested in just hearing, leaders' stories on how they kind of deal with those, and how they not only deal with them, but how they manage and lead during those times.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it's definitely, that's definitely the time for it. It's definitely a needed thing right now. So happy to know that you're doing that work.
Sure.
Kind of along those same lines, you mentioned George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor. This has always been a hot topic, but now it's kind of like you said, it's just like the time is right to talk about this kind of stuff. But what role do you see in like academia in particular playing in this big conversation and making positive change when it comes to race and equality?
I think it's something that a lot of times we've avoided in academia, particularly in sport management. I don't think it's something that should be um, the role and responsibility of just one class. So, for instance, some programs that may have a class on diversity, um, and that's it, right? And we expect that to be the whole kind of learning that a student, gets on this subject matter. But I think these things should be kind of embedded into each and every one of the classes that students take. And this is the time, this is not only the time to talk about it, but the university setting, it's supposed to be, a setting for learning. It's supposed to be the setting to where students learn before going out in the workforce. So I see no better place to get knowledge, to gain knowledge about the injustices that our society confronts and faces before students go out into to work in sport or whatever industry that they go and work in. But I think it's particularly important for us in sport management, just because most students, at least it's been my experience, they want to go work in the big four, particularly in the NFL or NBA. And with those two leagues, there's one thing in common: they're mostly made up of predominantly Black men. And then you look at the WNBA, Black women. So you want to be able to empathize and be able to understand these issues, because your main human resource, the people that are bringing you money, these are the issues that affect them, every day. Same with college athletics. You look at football, at many universities, football is the main driver. It pays for all the other sports to be able to travel and do things. And this sport too is comprised of mostly Black men. So I think it's important for us in education, particularly in sport management, to kind of be like the leading force beyond this change. And I think it can't just be up to people like myself that study this. It has to be up to there has to be allies, people from other racial and ethnic groups that kind of have been avoiding this conversation, but they have to want it to have these conversations too, and not kind of shy away. And I think we're getting there. In recent weeks, I've seen more and more people want to have these conversations, approach me, contact me about how to go about having these conversations. So I think that's great for our future, particularly when we think about sport management.
Yeah, I always think of sports and just the college classroom as a bit of a melting pot where people kind of come together from a lot of different backgrounds and demographics. So I think it's that might not always be true, obviously,
Yeah.
in all classrooms and all colleges, but in theory it should be, and it's a really great place to start that conversation and learning, I think, for sure.
For sure.
So kind of moving from a really, really serious topic, obviously an important topic, to some that aren't so important, but some fun questions for you. What do you do when you aren't teaching, researching, writing, or consulting? Like, what do you do for fun?
I mean, right now, nothing. I mean,
Chase your kids around?
yeah, I mean, it's just a bunch of, well, right now, just getting ready for the semester, unfortunately. But I guess in a normal season or pre-COVID, um, spending time with my wife, 3 children, um, guess catching up on cartoons, and I've totally lost control of the TV that I used to have pre-COVID. Um, but whenever they go to sleep is my time to catch up on the shows that I watch. And, the Chicago shows on NBC. So any sports. Sports, of course, play a huge role in my life. They always have been. So just particularly soccer, or football. As you can see by the jersey, Chelsea FC. So if there's any haters out there that don't like Chelsea FC, any Man United, Tottenham, or
Should
Liverpool.
have worn my Man United jersey for this interview.
um, so yeah, I love soccer. So I'll be watching the FA Cup final this Saturday, Chelsea and Arsenal. I love to travel. We love to travel. And so right now with COVID being kind of like at the center, watching a lot of YouTube travel blogs and things like that, trying to get my somewhat of a fix and seeing the next places that we want to travel to. But also reading, become a more avid reader during this pandemic, and listening to more podcasts and just trying to learn, learn new skills and things like that to kind of help me as I move along in my career. And then I think what all my at least past students have always known me for, maybe not so not so much you guys, but trolling students on Twitter has been one of my favorite pastimes. Is one of my former students, she has me in her phone as Professor Petty, just because of
It's amazing.
the things that were said, the banter on Twitter and social media.
It's a good warning to future students. You know, watch what you put on Twitter.
Yeah.
What's your favorite food or restaurant in Columbus?
I haven't had the chance to explore much in Columbus as of yet. But I would say right now, our favorite would probably be a Ghanaian African restaurant, Jalees. Um, just gives us our fix of, home cooking, Ghanaian cooking. So I'm trying to think. So yeah, I think, yeah, it'd have to be Jalees right now.
Cool.
So if you're ever in the mood for any type of African cuisine, definitely check out Jalees in Columbus.
Nice. We talked about some of your mentors that kind of helped you along the way, academically and professionally, but who is your role model?
Right now, I don't think I have a role model necessarily right now. Um, yeah, I can't really think of a role model right now, but
All
in
right.
terms of when I was growing up, it was definitely Michael Jordan. I mean, that was,
Yeah.
that was everything. Michael Jordan. I love Michael Jordan. I would have to say if there's um, two people or a few people that I could interview right now, he'd be one of them, and Barack Obama. Um, but yeah, I mean, those are the two people that if I could ever do an interview with, I'd love to interview those two.
That'd be amazing. Either one of them, pretty amazing.
We'll see. We'll see about that. I think I
Yeah.
actually have more of an opportunity to interview Obama than I do Jordan, just because he's so closed off.
Yeah. True. True. Who was your favorite sports team growing up? You kind of alluded to Michael Jordan, but and Chelsea, but who was your favorite team?
Oh yeah, I mean, easily the Bulls. I mean, um, I grew up watching them. I can remember my earliest memory of them is 1991, and I write about this in my upcoming book, um, my infatuation and how I got stuck on sports. Um, my uncle had just arrived in the United States from Ghana at the time. And, our sport culture here in the United States is so much different than what it is around the world. Like, we are a sports obsessed nation. So 1991, the NBA Finals, they were playing the Los Angeles Lakers. And I was only 5 at the time, going on 6, and they lost game 1 in the NBA Finals, and I was just crying. Like, I was like just bawling, crying, and my uncle was just like, local language, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you crying? This is just a game. And it's funny now that his daughter, my cousin, was like, fast forward like 30 years or whatever later, and now he's the one crying over the Sooners losing in football, like choking every playoffs and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it'd have to be the Bulls. Like, I grew up watching them, the early '90s, followed them up until the, the team got broken up. I think the Last Dance is showing a lot of those things. But yeah, during my childhood, the Bulls were my favorite team. Not so
Cool.
much anymore, but yeah, definitely back then.
Not as of late.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite all-time sports memory, or either something you got to do, participate in, or witness, or see, or maybe it's a Bulls memory?
Um, yeah, I mean, there's so many with the Bulls. Like, with each championship, with each of the 6, I can distinctly remember like where I was and what I was doing as they won the title. I mean, the last one was very important and really memorable because you knew it was the end. You knew they were breaking up. It was going to be the last dance, as the documentary shows. And I remember John Stockton hitting that 3 with like 30 seconds or whatever to go. And like, I'm a teenager at the time, teenage boys are just not in the right mind. And I was so mad. I was thinking stuff like, no, this can't be the way that they go out and stuff like that. And then, he comes back and scores a layup, steals the ball, and hits the game winner, game over, whatever. So seeing that in person Well, not in person, but on TV, live is something I'll never forget. And, something that, you saw in class, I tried to portray to the students, like, you guys just don't get it. Like, you don't understand how clutch this guy was to compare to your guy, LeBron. But that's a totally different, we won't get into that.
A whole nother podcast.
But I think beyond that, in 2012, uh, Chelsea, winning the Champions League was just huge, because back in 2008, we were right there. We lost in penalties to United. I think it was like 2009. Um, Iniesta scored a goal late in the final minutes when we were about to go on to the final. Um, so, it was all redemption in 2012, a year that we weren't supposed to win it. We had, nobody picked us to win it. We were sixth in the league in in the Premier League that season, but somehow they just, continued to endure and somehow, beat Bayern Munich. I still to this day don't know how they did it, but went to we were at this bar in Dallas, Texas, watching it. Um, Bayern scored really late, like 80 something minute. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, no, not again. And then Drogba scores. And then, we win in penalties. And like, I just remember going crazy, lost my voice. I say, like, there's a few moments in my life that I remember. And like, of course, like getting married is one of them, but I always tell, beyond getting married and my children, Chelsea winning the Champions League is right there with it.
That's awesome. If you could like attend any sporting event, would that be like a Champions League final with Chelsea?
Yeah, I just wish, with our academic year, like kind of, coincides with their season. They start in August and end in May, and so do we. So kind of it's tough to attend a game, but yeah, I mean, I'd love to go to a Chelsea game, any Chelsea game. If they were, Champions League, I mean, yeah, that's even better. I got a chance to go to a international Champions Cup game a few years ago, 2016, in a place that I guess Ohio State fans don't like too much, Ann Arbor. They held the game there. They played Real Madrid, so it was a great chance to see the team and see some stars from Real Madrid too. But yeah, hopefully one day I can make it to London to see a game.
That's awesome. I got to see Club America play Barcelona in Houston. And that was probably like the biggest sporting event I've ever been to. It was crazy. It was cool to see a whole culture come around a game. It's pretty amazing. Our last question is, if you weren't working in academia, what would you be doing?
It's
You'll
funny.
be a lawyer?
No, heck no. One of my friends just asked me that question to me the other week, and it's tough. I mean, you've been doing this. I mean, I haven't been doing it too long, but particularly with what I'm doing right now with my consulting business, like I could see myself like, if I wasn't doing this, doing something like that, working for an IDO or like a frog design or something like that, like tackling systemic issues with design. So things like that, I'm just like infatuated with. Like, if you look at my Instagram or just my wife, we share some social media. She's like, I have all these freaking IDEO ads. I'm like, oh, are you looking at IDEO? So I'm sorry about that.
That's funny. Hey, they're a great company to look at. Lots of cool stuff.
For sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that was our last question. Just wanted to, thank you for your time today. We definitely appreciate it. The incoming students will appreciate it as well. And thank you everyone for tuning in to the SMA YouTube channel. We'll see you guys again soon.